Ladies and gentlemen, this Tech Tribunal, we're going to be taking a look at Metro 2033 versus Metro 2033 Redux. We're going to be comparing both PC versions for this video. I've also done this as an article. I'd recommend checking out. There are high quality downloads as well as a hell of a lot of text and screenshots for you to check out if you so desire. And embedded in that article is not only this video but a comparison of the PS4 version of Redux versus the PC. So the big question on everyone's mind is, if you are a PC owner, as particularly if you were playing 2033 on the highest specs, would you get that much of an upgrade visually with Redux? Well, the answer is actually yes. However, before we discuss that, I just want to point out that this is not just a visual upgrade, despite the fact that that's what most people are focusing upon. There are numerous gameplay improvements. You'll probably see a couple of them throughout the video. However, I by no means could fit all of them in such a short space of time. Improvements to the cutscene and the way the story unfolds is present from the moment you start the game. There are improvements to the stealth sections and actual additions, for example the fact you can actually wipe your gas mask in this version. You've even got little touches, for example quite early on in the game where you are basically going through the metro area, there's a gas mask on the wall. Now, that might not sound like a big deal, but it's the first time you're actually forced to use your gas mask. So the very fact of the matter is, if you'd run out of filters before, you're pretty much in the hurt locker. So it's a nice little touch that once again doesn't add huge amounts to the title, but it's all these little touches that improve the overall playability and the enjoyability of the game. So getting on to the graphics, despite the fact that the PC version of this looked pretty damn gorgeous when it was first released, there were some ropey areas. Models in particular had aged slightly, and there were also some issues with animation. That's not to say that animation now is perfect. There are some dodgy areas, particularly if you shoot someone with a high-powered weapon or if there's an explosion. But for the most part, the ragdoll physics and the overall quality of the animation and models has improved. That's not to say that all models have been swapped out. There are a couple that are sticking out quite frankly like a sore thumb, and that's a bit of a shame in comparison to the rest of the models, and the rest of the aesthetic has improved quite significantly. But this is definitely letting things down just a hair. Textures have improved somewhat, however some of this is to do with the fact that some of the environments have had quite a large facelift. It's not just a simple case of, oh, we've gone in and made things HD, and I use that in that tone because obviously we're talking about PC anyway, but instead they've actually gone ahead and actually remodeled some of the environments, to, at least to an extent. Additional debris, smoke particles, fog, lighting, all come in to make the game look that much better. In fact, in some areas it actually gives a distinctly different vibe, because for example a moat that was once full of water now has slightly less water in it, but it will have some rubble and some debris and maybe some bones in it and that type of thing. So you could just feel that the area is that much more vibrant. Anti-aliasing support has been improved somewhat for the PC outing. You've now got SSAA available, along with, of course, NVIDIA's hardware physics, which is present in the video that you are watching on both versions, just to point that out. I have to say that the overall performance of the game on the PC is pretty damn good, and I haven't really noticed any major performance problems considering what they've actually done with it. Now, I don't necessarily feel that it's 100% as good as the Redux of Last Light. There are some ropier areas, but considering the fact that the game is considerably older than the Last Light, I have to say that Metro 2033 Redux is perhaps the more impressive of the two. The lighting itself definitely looks better. Now, there are numerous reasons behind that. Not only does, for example, the actual environment itself much better reflect of what's going on in the light sources around it. For example, just for a pure example, a campfire now much better casts its colour and reflections and so on to the environment as a whole. But not only that, the environments, because of this, look a lot less bland and, dare I even say, somewhat flat. Previously, particularly on the outside areas, there was a hell of a lot of grey, and while obviously you don't exactly expect the lush forests of, say, Far Cry, you do expect a little bit of extra and additional contrast to maybe what was in the original. This has been fortunately fixed. I will, however, speak about one slight weakness, since we were actually talking about forests just then, and that is vegetation. Unfortunately, just like many titles, the vegetation on Metro 2033 Redux hasn't exactly been what you could call a stellar work of art. Now, that's not to say it's bad, particularly in the actual Metro sections themselves, like underground, where you see like the mushrooms and the fungi and so on feeding on rotting bodies. That actually looks pretty good, and their additional light sourcing actually works really well with them, where, for example, you get the whole smoke effect. It actually plays in extremely nicely. I more refer to what I would assume to be the last vestiges of, say, grass and the twisted roots of trees and so on. That looks a little ropey. I've got a couple of examples of it in the article, but they're also in the video as well, and it doesn't look awful, quite frankly. I have seen worse, but because the rest of the game has been upgraded, so this is definitely one of those areas where you just wish that there was a little more detail there. It certainly doesn't look bad, it certainly doesn't look awful, but at the same time you just wish that they'd just paid a little more attention to it. Overall, however, I'm extremely impressed with the Redux package, considering the price point and considering the fact that you're actually getting 2 games for it. I actually think it's an insanely good value piece of, gaming software. It's just really impressive, particularly if you see other remasters or definitive editions, or God knows whatever marketing terminology they're going to come up with. This is extremely impressive, and to be honest with you, 4A games should well be supported with this. If you really own the PC versions, I understand that you might be questioning whether you actually want to cough up for the additional or the new gameplay. There are, for example, the Spartan modes, which may or may not be your thing. Personally speaking, I have very little difficulty in recommending this, even if you are the owner of the original titles. I don't normally necessarily support remastering so much, but they've gone into a hell of a lot of work here. And this isn't just we've improved the texture quality. They've actually gone in, spruced up areas, improved areas of the gameplay which were incredibly irritating. Maybe not incredibly irritating, but certainly not as fun as what they could have been. They've fixed those, they've improved the narration, they've improved the cutscenes, they've improved the actual weapon mechanics in some cases, they've improved and taken elements from the Last Light and gone back. They've even gone so far as to making a different bloody icon for the title, which is pretty impressive. In fact, even the benchmarking utility for Metro 2033 Redux has actually undergone a little work. So yes, if you are the owner of the PC version, or even more so the Xbox 360 or PS3, I have absolutely no issue whatsoever in saying to you, go ahead, purchase the new version of the game, particularly if you quite enjoyed it or it was quite a long time ago you last played it. Maybe try it on Spartan Assault, or maybe just go in and, you know, try and do something differently. But in my opinion, it's a really good title and I would definitely recommend it. Anyway, hopefully you've enjoyed the video. I'll see you soon. Take care. Bye for now.